And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Doss versus Harold. Step forward, please.
18-year-old student Jennifer Doss is suing her former best friend, 18-year-old student Nicole Harold, for unpaid rent, damage to her car, and for ruining a pair of slacks.
Ms. Doss, the defendant is or was a friend of yours, and your claim has three parts to it. First, it is your claim that she owes you for rent. She moved in with you and your family, and according to you, agreed to pay your mother some rent. She didn't pay your mother rent, you paid your mother, and therefore you want her to repay you. So far correct?
Yes.
Number two, you claim that she set fire to the inside of your car with a cigarette and damaged it. You wanted to pay for that. And number three, you say that she borrowed some clothes of yours, a pair of jeans, and destroyed them, damaged them by cutting off the bottoms, and you wanted to replace the jeans.
They're not jeans, they're dress pants.
Pants. The defendant says you burned the car yourself or somebody else did. She didn't do it. There was never an agreement for rent, and your pants don't fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you move into her house?
I was having family problems at my aunt's house, and I guess I was with her. We were at Firestone Park, this park we were at.
Don't go into all this. I don't care where you were at.
Okay.
You were having family problems at home, and she invited you to come and live with her?
Yeah, she said it would be okay for me to stay.
Okay.
And there was never no agreement. Her mom said if I had a job to help around, like help out, if I had a job.
When you moved, listen to me. Why don't you let me ask questions? When you moved in with her, were you working?
No.
Is that right?
Yes.
So how did you expect her to pay rent?
Well, me and my mom tried several times. We went and put in applications. Me and Nicole both, we went together.
Could you keep your voice up? You went to put in applications for what?
Well, we went to Rubbermaid and...
To find a job?
Yes.
But at the time she moved in with you, she had no job.
Yes.
So how did you expect her to pay rent?
We were going to get a job.
But she didn't get a job.
No.
Good. So there's no rent. You think that I believe that you gave your mother rent for her? You think I believe that? That's what you say in your complaint. Is that what you're going to tell me here in court, that you gave your mother rent for her?
Yes, I did.
I don't believe you. How's that? Next thing is your car. Tell me about your car.
Well, me and Nicole went up to Chapel Hill Mall, and she was smoking, and we met up with one of her friends, and she asked me if I wanted to go over to their house. I said fine, because we weren't doing nothing at the time. We were just driving around. And when we pulled up in front of their house, she went to put her cigarette out on a Taco Bell cup, and she dropped her cigarette and it went under the seat, and she told me that she put it out, and when I turned on my dome light, there was smoke coming out from under my seat, and I started yelling at Nicole, and she still insisted that she put it out, and then when I reached my hand under the seat, I found the cigarette, and I had burn holes in my seat and on my floor.
And what about on your hand?
No, I didn't have them on my hand.
But was the cigarette out or not?
It was a little bit out, but by the time I found it, it was out.
And let me see the damage to your car.
And there was also a time where she burnt the ceiling because she didn't roll down the window far enough to flick it out, and I also have pictures of that too.
What is this, on the seat?
Yes, on the bottom of the seat.
Underneath?
Yes.
Can you see it when you look at the car?
No.
And what about this?
That's the ceiling.
Okay. So you can't see the cigarette hole when you look at your car. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, you fill up under the seat and you can feel it.
Did you fix it?
No, I have not yet.
Are you going to fix it?
Yes, I am.
Why?
Because I just bought my car 4 months before that happened, and I'm trying to trade it in so I don't have all these...
Well, maybe if you don't tell anybody, they won't know that there's a little hole underneath the seat where you have to put your hand.
Well, the dealership already knows about it.
Who told them?
I did, because I wanted to get it fixed.
Did you put out a cigarette in her car?
I put it at the top on an accident. The top I did, the little burn
So
hole.
this you did?
Yeah, one. There's like a lot of them, but I did one.
There were a lot of them. From where?
From the back seat when she had like tons of people in the back and smoking. She like crowded people in her back seat.
Is that true?
I have a paper right here. It said that there was no other burn holes found when the guy inspected my car.
It was under the seat.
He inspected the whole car.
So the answer is you did burn a hole in her car. Is that right?
Yeah, not the ground, not the seat.
Just this?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Shouldn't let people smoke in your car. All right, let's talk about the pants. Did you borrow her pants? Don't tell me I don't want to hear I can tell when you're telling me the truth. I can tell when you're lying. So I don't care what you wrote in your answer.
Okay.
Forget about that. Did you borrow her pants?
Yes, I borrowed them.
All right, now, that's good. Not your cousin, you borrowed her pants. And did you cut her pants?
No, my cousin Jamie did.
But
And
you
I told
borrowed,
her.
but you borrowed them.
Yeah. So
And
did
you're
Jamie.
responsible.
She borrowed it too, Jamie, when we were all going to the club. And I told her the next day that Jamie cut them, and she said, I don't know, she said something to Jamie.
Explain that to me.
All right.
You borrowed the
Yeah.
pants?
Yeah, I borrowed them once.
And then you returned them to her?
I was living with her.
You returned them to her?
Yeah, but it wasn't cut up yet.
When did your cousin borrow them?
Yeah. When we
Oh, God, give me strength. Not yeah. When requires a date.
It was after I wore them. Because when she first
Who
got
did
it.
she borrow them from?
Her.
Is that right?
Jamie never wore these. She had a different outfit of mine on.
Did she ever borrow them from you?
Nicole did, but Jamie did not.
Really?
Yes.
Let me see the bottom.
They're cut up over on this side, and right here.
Now, you understand that in your answer, you said to me that you never borrowed her pants because her pants wouldn't fit you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a So that was a lie. Is that right?
Right.
You both lie. How could you both lie? Why would you both lie in court? Isn't that a stupid thing? You didn't pay your mother any rent, and you, in fact, did borrow her pants. And you did cause some damage to her car. You should be responsible for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Okay, good. How many people smoked in your car within the last month?
None. There has not been no smoking in my car since Nicole burnt the bottom of my seat.
Then let's say prior to Nicole burning the hole in your car. How many people smoked in your car?
Maybe about 3 or 4, not that many.
3 or 4 is a lot of people. I thought you told me in your complaint that you had a no-smoking car.
I do, but I told everybody that smoked in my car, if they can smoke responsibly, they can smoke in my car. But if they can't, I don't want them smoking in my car.
That's fine. Can I see those pants, please? Tell me about why you moved out.
Me and her got in an argument, and I
What'd you
decided-
get into an argument about?
Guys or something. Like, we were at her boyfriend's house, and ever since then, we weren't talking anymore.
So you moved back home?
Yeah.
All right. How much did you pay for these pants?
They were $42 for the whole outfit. I have a letter from the place where I got them from.
Can I see that clerk, please? When did you buy them?
Probably about a year ago.
Did you ever wear them?
Yes, I have.
How many times did you wear them?
Maybe twice.
Okay. And they were $42. I'm giving you $300 for the hole in your car and $42 for the pants. You got nothing for the rent because that was a fib. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $342. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think she just did it for the money. She needs money.
I just don't think that it was fair that Nicole got away with burning my car when she knows for a fact that she really did it.
It's not fair if I have to pay for it if no one else has to pay for it.
Me and Nikki just can't get along.
We weren't getting along.
It was just a bad friendship all from the beginning.
Freelance journalist Rebecca Fowler is suing her former neighbor, 32-year-old healthcare provider Delva Broom, for unpaid child care fees.
Order. All rise. Now, this is case number 44 on the calendar in the matter of Fowler versus Broom. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Fowler, you are suing the defendant for some child care that you provided during a 3-month period from September until December.
Yes, ma'am.
The defendant says that you were paid. Did you know her before you started to do this child care arrangement with her?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
How?
I met her in the summer of 2000. Her son was over to my house, and he had stole some money, so I had to go and talk with her about it. He admitted stealing the money, and...
How old is your son?
He's now 13. And then again, he was not the only one.
But that's not the child you were
Right.
babysitting for.
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Then on September the 10th of 2001, I went to Tarzana Elementary School to pick up my daughter, Cayman. And when I got there, her daughter, Kylie, was with my daughter. And she was crying, and I asked her what was the matter, and she said that
She's
she was
lying.
upset.
I don't want to hear.
She said that she was upset because her mother hadn't come to pick her up yet. So I called her mother on the cell phone and let her mother know that if it was okay, I would, bring her home. She said she got off at 6 o'clock At 6:30, when she got to my house, we entered a verbal agreement for me to begin watching her child.
Well, what was said? She must have said something to you. Can you watch her regularly?
Yes, she let me know that her daughter was on the waiting list for Latchkey, which is an after-school program. Until then, you know, she didn't really have anyone to pick her up from school. I told her I could pick her up, you know, each day with my daughter. And she said she would pay me $6 an hour. I was picking her up at 2:30 each day. And I began on September 11th actually providing child care for her. Then on September the 14th, Ms. Broom approached me with paperwork from a company called CC&RC and asked me if I would enter a contract with them. They are a company that provides assistance with child care payments for single parents. I filled out the application and everything and then began to wait. One of the things that I mentioned to her, in order for me to be able to watch her child, I would have to enter her child into programs that my child was entered into, tap and ballet classes. Here are the receipts for the ballet and tap classes that I entered her daughter. I paid for them, and Mrs. Broom reimbursed me.
Good. Okay. Did you get paid at all from Mrs. Broom?
Not for child care, no ma'am.
Nothing?
No ma'am.
Well, what was her excuse? You watched the child in September, in October?
When I filled out the forms for the company CC&RC, they were going to be paying me the money. I received the first contract from them on October the 23rd, and I noticed that the rate that they were offering to pay was $2.84, which was not the agreement I had with Ms. Broom. Ms. Broom, when I brought the contract to her, she said, well, don't worry about it. I will reimburse you. I will pay you.
Why hadn't she paid you anything from September 11th until October?
Paid.
I want to get to you. Okay. Why hadn't she paid you anything? Why did you continue to watch her daughter if she hadn't paid you anything?
Because I filled out the contract with this company, and I was told by her that they would pay me. They told me it would take a couple of weeks for the paperwork to go through.
Okay, so now you've got middle of October, and they tell you they're going to pay you $2.84 an hour. You speak to her, she said, don't worry, I'll make up the difference.
Yes, she did.
What happened in the end of October and the month of November? Because clearly she wasn't giving you, according to you, any more money, even the difference, even if you were paid by the state. She wasn't.
Well, she always had an excuse as to why, and me being her friend, I didn't, you know, I was trying to actually help her. She was having problems with her son in school. She was having financial problems being a single mother or whatever, and I was being very understanding of that, being a single mother myself.
Did you get any money whatsoever from the defendant?
No, ma'am.
Did you get any money from this organization?
Yes, ma'am. On December the 20th, I received a check from that organization.
For how much?
For $360. And here's the copy of the paperwork for that. Ms. Broom and I met on October the 15th to go down to CC&RC to ask what was going on as to why I hadn't been paid. They stated that I had not had a TB test. So on the 19th, I had a TB test, and here's the record for that.
Okay.
Okay. Then they said it would be a few more weeks for the paperwork to go through.
So those weeks that you babysat for her, 5 days a week, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. I kept a...
Just a second. And how many weeks did you watch the child?
I don't have the weeks calculated, but I do have a tally for each month of September, October, November, December, the days that I watched a child, the hours that I watched a child. CC&RC provides you with this type of form that you turn in.
Okay. Now I'll hear you, Ms. Broom.
Okay. First of all, I would like to iterate that my daughter did stay on the grounds. I took my lunch at 2:30 between 3 and picked her up. My children, both of them, were able to come to my job and sit in the conference room.
Listen, I'm not interested.
All right. Well, other than
not
that,
interested.
My daughter would not be standing there crying. She called me on my cell phone. She says, I'll take Kylie home with me. And then she says, I can watch her if you want. She offered. I never asked her.
That's not true.
Which is fine. I never asked her to do anything. I told her that I had Kylie on the waiting list with CCRC. And if she, you know, if we discuss it, if she didn't mind, she can watch her and she can sign a contract with them and they'll reimburse her. I pay CCRC a portion of whatever the child care is.
How much do you pay CCRC?
It all depends on what the provider is being charged. Here's a log of what I pay CCRC. She was paid. That's the bottom line. I don't owe her any money. There were things that were going on in her home. She was rather upset because I removed my child from her home.
That's not true.
There were things. She has an autistic daughter.
She stayed with, listen to me carefully, Miss Broom. Your daughter stayed with her part of September,
Right.
October, November, part of December. And what you're telling me, your defense to this case is that your arrangement with her
Right.
was that she was going to be paid by this organization.
And until she was paid, I paid her cash.
Okay.
And in the same instance, just like I paid her for ballet and tap, she was reimbursed for child care.
Yeah, okay.
She was reimbursed for child care.
Really?
Not only did she, and she said, she's making a statement that she watched my daughter. We did things for each other. We were supposed to be friends. Quote unquote, I thought that's what we are. In the same instance, she made matters even worse. I didn't even want to deal with it, remove my child from her home. The things that went on in her home, I couldn't relate to it.
Forget.
Okay.
I'm not interested. You left your child there. That's the bottom line.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She's lying.
No, I don't believe she's lying.
Well, I believe she's lying.
Well, I don't care what you believe. The most important thing is that I don't believe she's lying. I don't believe that for 1 second.
And later today,
You were on City Time romancing his girlfriend in his house. You didn't tell me it wasn't true, Mr. Flores.
It's not true.
Because I have a feeling you two guys are playing with each other a little bit.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Rebecca Fowler says former friend Delva Broom owes for babysitting fees. Delva says Rebecca was paid by the county.
How much do you earn annually?
Probably about $33,000, $34,000 a year.
Okay.
That's the issue. She thought that I don't know what I'm a single mother. I'm not on welfare. I work hard.
That's fine.
And if I was not qualified for this, she knew that she signed a contract with CCRC. Until CCRC picked up her contract, I then paid her. Again, she's lying.
I don't believe she's lying.
Well, I believe she's lying.
I don't care what you believe. The most important thing is that I don't believe she's lying.
Well.
I believe because a babysitter, not somebody who's 12 years old, but somebody who is an adult, a very minimal, reasonable payment for an adult is $6 an hour.
Right. And she received that.
Just a second. I don't believe that for 1 second that you paid her. Not for a moment. I believe that she was strung along.
No.
And she finally got a payment of $360, which is here in the paperwork. Put your hand down. Does it look like you're losing?
No, ma'am.
Where is your daughter currently?
My daughter is currently in an after-school program.
And when was she accepted in the after-school program?
After
What month was
January.
Right. So you stopped with her in December?
No, I did not. I was at the end of November.
Listen, you're a fast talker.
No, I'm...
Bottom line is, I believe that you agreed with her and you said, I can pay you $6 an hour. Ultimately, you said to her, fill out these forms because some of it, you can get back and then I can pay you the difference.
No.
That sounds right to me.
That's not true.
But
Because
nobody is going to work for $2 an hour. Nobody works for $2 an hour. Judgment for the plaintiff. Quiet. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,612. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
There's a reason why I took my child from her home. She's very vindictive. She's been convicted of child abuse.
I terminated the child care because by December the 15th, I hadn't been paid by her nor CCNRC.
She's a liar, welfare recipient.
Threatening to have me and my boyfriend beat up by people.
She's a liar, and she was paid. She's a liar.
She never paid me anything.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Cox versus Sinius. Step forward, please.
19-year-old student Jody Cox is suing her former friend, 19-year-old student Jerry Sinius, for damage to a car that was rented in her name.
Miss Cox, the defendant was a friend of yours, and according to your complaint, you were foolish enough to rent a car for him, your name, using your credit card. Is that right?
Well, the car, it was in his name. I was the second driver. He just needed me as a second driver so he could use the credit card.
So you used your credit card?
Yes.
But the intention was for him to use the car?
Yes, I wasn't going to be there at all. I was just doing him a favor. This way he could take his trip, and he told me he was going to pay for everything in cash.
Where was he going?
Virginia, I believe.
But you weren't going to be on the trip. The car was for him. Is that right, sir?
Correct.
And then the car got smashed up.
Yes.
And they've sued you.
No, well, they charged me, and
on
my
the
mother
credit
paid
card,
it off.
on your credit card.
Yes.
How much did they charge your credit card?
$1,400. I have a statement.
I'd like to see it, please.
I also have the estimate for the damage and a picture of the car.
I just want to see what they charged you.
Okay.
$1,400. When did you take this trip, sir?
On the 12th of April, I believe it was.
And there's no question that the car was damaged while you had it on this trip.
Correct.
Let's hear you.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jody Cox says former friend Jerry Sinius wrecked a car rented in her name. Jerry says he wasn't driving when the accident occurred.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we took the trip, right? On
Who's
the way
we?
back, me and my other two friends, Kenneth and Roy. We took the trip.
Which one is this?
This is Kenneth. On the way back, I was a little tired, so I let him drive the car, right? But me and Jody had the understanding that he would be the second driver. So on the way back, we got into an accident.
Just a minute. You had that understanding with her.
Correct.
Is that right?
We had to understand that he would be driving to Virginia, and if he got tired, someone else would drive. Yes.
Which was Kenneth.
Yeah.
All right. Now, on the way back, Kenneth got into a little accident and hit the side of the car. And then we took it back to the rental place, and they said that I thought at first the insurance would cover it, but it didn't. So
Why not?
I don't know the reason.
Do you know the reason?
No, they didn't even tell me this. I didn't even know until I got the credit card statement.
Well, me, Kenneth, and Roy, we came to agreement that the person who was behind the wheel would tell Jody.
Who asked her for the use of her credit card?
I asked her.
He was your friend.
Yes, he was a good friend of mine as well.
What about Kenneth?
He was a friend, but I was good friends with Jerry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we came to that agreement that Kenneth would tell Jody about the accident. Well, he didn't. So she found out through the statement. Well, so I felt, me personally, I felt I wasn't responsible for the accident being the fact that I wasn't behind the wheel. Had I was behind the wheel, I would take full responsible for it. But I wasn't behind the wheel, so I don't feel I was responsible.
I don't think you're a bad person. A little shifty, maybe. But let me just outline what you've testified to. And you tell me, because I really don't think that you're a bad person. Misguided, maybe. So let me outline what we have. She was a good friend of yours.
Correct.
You asked her, you, alone, asked her for a favor.
Correct.
The favor was, can I use your credit card? Some friends of mine and I want to take a trip.
Correct.
And I don't have a credit card to use. Can I use your credit card? She says yes. Rent a car and you go on the trip.
Correct.
You get tired. Yeah. She didn't get tired.
You're right.
You got tired. You have the following choices when you get tired. You can pull off the road and take a nap. You can say, I've driven enough today. You chose to allow your friend to drive the car. She didn't have your friend drive the car. You chose, you, who had the original agreement with her, let your friend drive the car. He gets into an accident. Were you sleeping at the time?
Yes, I was.
So you don't know about the accident?
No.
You don't know what happened?
Not exactly.
You have no idea what happened. Then, instead of you telling your friend who went out on a limb for you, listen, we had an accident, and let's see what the responsibility is here, you decide to let Kenneth tell her.
But we came to agreement.
Not with her.
With him.
With him?
Yes.
What does that have to do with her?
Nothing.
Right. Nothing. She's the innocent. Little stupid, but innocent. Now, you don't say to Kenneth a few hours later, did you call Miss Cox and tell her about the accident?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say to you?
So I asked him, did he call her? He didn't reply.
He didn't reply, and that was good enough for you.
He said he was going to call her.
He said he was going to call her.
Correct.
So then did you say to him the next day, did you call her and let her know about the accident?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say?
He said, I'm going to call her.
You didn't say to him, let's sit down right now, because this is not right. She did me a favor. The favor was, let me use her credit card.
Correct.
Let's sit down right now and you pick up that phone and call her and tell her that you had an accident. You didn't do that, right? You just figured.
That he would call and tell her.
You believe that Kenneth is responsible?
Because he was behind the wheel and...
You believe that Kenneth was responsible
Yes.
and that he should pay for it. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Good. So this is what we're going to do. I'm giving her a judgment for $1,400 against you. If you think Kenneth is responsible, you take out a summons, and sue him. Do you understand?
Yes.
That way, she's dealing with the person who she made a contract with.
Correct.
You then are dealing with a person that you feel is responsible. That's your problem. Don't visit it on her. You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,400. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Honestly, I thought I wasn't going to be charged for the $1,400.
I did a friend a favor and I got beat in the long run.
It's all right. I just pay the money.
Don't do friends favors. You can't trust everybody.
I should have just came over and told her anyway.
Don't trust a lot of people.
I still don't feel that we're still responsible.
Don't lend your credit card out to people.
I do take some blame since I was behind the wheel, but I'm not taking full blame because I'm not under agreement, so I shouldn't be charged at all.
You can't really trust people.
But we could be friends again.
Don't lend your credit card out.
If you're responsible, just make sure you tell them.
Hunter Melissa Beck is suing her former landlord, elementary school teacher Kathy Izaguirre. Melissa claims Kathy poisoned her when she sprayed for termites.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 51 on the calendar in the matter of Beck versus Izaguirre. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Beck, are you still a tenant of the defendants?
No, Your Honor.
You moved out.
I still reside at that residence, but she has since sold the building, so she's no longer my landlord.
Okay. Your complaint is that while the defendant was your landlord, she caused you to become ill as a result of spraying pesticides in your apartment. And you want to be reimbursed for the nights that you had to stay out at a hotel and for thousands of dollars in pain and suffering. Now, when was this pesticide spraying incident?
April 1st of 2001.
And what were they spraying for?
Termites.
Had you seen termites?
Yes, Your Honor.
Were you notified that they would be spraying?
Verbally, yes.
So what's the problem?
They had just treated my apartment 6 to 8 weeks before that, going through the exact same procedure, spraying the interior of my apartment, which is not the proper procedure, as I've got evidence to prove here. The proper procedure is actually to drill holes in the slabs of the flooring or in the walls so you can actually get to the wood or underneath, because they were subterranean termites. The termites lived in the ground.
All right.
That's where they lived, but they were spraying the interior of my apartment twice in a 2-month period.
All right, 6 to 8 weeks before the incident that caused you difficulty, they sprayed once. Is that right?
Yes.
They sprayed once. And you remained in the apartment.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And when were you notified that they were going to spray again?
A few days before they came and
So what
sprayed
happened?
on April 1st.
Fine. So what happened? You notified that they were going to come in again.
I was notified that they were going to come in again, and I told her verbally, under no circumstances do I wish for you to spray the interior of my apartment. If you're going to do it, please follow the proper procedures the way it was done a year ago. Drill the holes, get to the termites. I'm giving you access to my apartment so that you can get to the termites, not to spray the interior. There's no need. I'm still smelling the pesticides. I don't need to go through this again. I'm still getting migraines from the last time.
So what happened?
I went to work, came home, found out that she had hired the pesticide guy, and she was there, and he did spray the interior of my apartment, spilled it on my kitchen floor. It had been wiped up. I have cats. They had walked through it. I walked in, it was just, it was overwhelming, and I hadn't even gathered any materials because I was under the impression that she was going to respect my wishes and not spray the interior again, since that doesn't even take care of the termites anyway.
All right. Now, since April 1st of 2001, have you seen evidence of termites in your apartment?
They're back, yes.
They're back.
Yes.
When did they come back?
A month ago.
So it's been almost a year.
Yes, they come. This is their breeding season.
Right.
Right about now. They come back. Seems to be the same time every year to come out and swarm so that they can mate and become termites. I'm learning way too much about termites.
Okay. Now, according to your complaint, the smell was overwhelming and you had to leave your apartment. Where did you go?
The Best Western hotel room. It's approximately about 3 or 4 blocks from my home.
Okay, and how many nights did you stay there?
2.
You have the receipts?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see them, please.
You stay over there.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I also needed to purchase HEPA filters to take the pesticide out of the air that I was breathing because I was getting so many migraines. It was suggested by my neurologist.
Why don't you move?
I couldn't afford to. My rent is rent controlled and only $570 a month. And for Los Angeles, a good area, that's extremely good for a one-bedroom.
So that's pretty good rent, even though the place has termites once a year, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so other than the $185.26 that you had to pay in a hotel room because of this smell of pesticides, what do you think that the defendant is responsible for?
I think that she was negligent in hiring an unlicensed pesticide person to come in and spray the interior of my apartment. He is unlicensed, as I have also in that pile is evidence to prove that. An agricultural commission did a report on it. He is an unlicensed contractor, and he had been also previously written up in 1994 for doing the exact same thing, spraying without a license and also spraying with restricted materials. I have no idea what I was exposed to. I have no idea whether or not he followed. I know the procedures that he followed were incorrect.
How do you know he was unlicensed? Give me the tab on here.
Purple? I'm sorry, I color-coded it to make it a little easier for you to find.
Purple
and
what?
that would be purple A1.
What was the name of the person that you hired?
Brigg. On the first page of that, it says...
Don't interrupt. I'm not speaking to you now.
Sorry.
Okay. How many years did you own this building?
I was never actually the owner. My mother was the owner. My parents owned the building for approximately 25 years.
Did you manage the building?
The only time I managed it, if you could call it that, was at the very end. My mother was very ill and she was unable to handle Miss Beck's harassment and complaints, and so I was handling the building at that time for her.
This exterminator that you hired is not licensed.
At the time, I believed that he was. I asked him if he was bonded and licensed. He said yes.
Did you ask to see his credentials?
I asked what his license number was, and he gave me a number. He had been in the business for 45 years and had worked for my mother for 10. And when Miss Beck needed...
So is what you're telling me that this person was the same person who sprayed previously for you?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
Miss Beck, you said that the apartment had been sprayed previously. This Craig, he is the one who sprayed previously, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
How many times had he sprayed the apartment before?
I'm not really sure. He had been doing it...
For years?
For years.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I trusted her, Your Honor, that it was okay to be in that. I stayed there too.
I want you to be smarter. I don't want you to trust anybody. I want you to trust your own instincts, madam.
And later today...
Your Honor, we had a deal. Deal. We had a deal. I was to learn something. I paid
And you
for
didn't
new
learn
stuff.
anything. Whose fault is that? You went back to work. That is not a loan, Mr. Andre. That's not a loan.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Melissa Beck says former landlord Kathy Izaguirre poisoned her when she sprayed for termites.
Listen, Miss Beck, you don't make a big deal over things that aren't a big deal. Do you understand? You live in a rent-controlled building, which is a very old building. You live there because the rent is cheap, and that doesn't mean that you have to be subjected to things that are terrible. Your landlord can't do terrible things to you, but there are termites, and termites have to be eradicated. I don't think that the defendant did anything terrible to you. I certainly don't think it's worth thousands of dollars. I think that she has to compensate you for the 2 nights that you spent in a hotel because you were unable to use your apartment. I assume you paid your rent on time.
I have proof also showing what the proper procedures are
I don't
follow
care.
When you're...
Listen to me. I don't care what the proper procedures are, madam. I'm telling you that the termites that you complained
But you don't spray the baseboards of an apartment and let it just sit there for months. There's nowhere for it to go. It was painted over since the 1950s.
Listen to me. Life is full of choices. The choice that you made to leave the apartment for 2 days because you couldn't stand the smell was a good choice. She has to compensate you for that choice because she was quiet. Because she was responsible Even if she used someone who had a degree from Harvard, you might have had a reaction from the pesticides that were used. However, your apartment was rendered, through no fault of your own, uninhabitable for 2 nights. Now, if what you're saying, Miss Beck, is that it continues to be uninhabitable, or for months was uninhabitable, or for weeks, or for periods of time that you got headaches and migraines, etc., move! Nobody is holding you in this apartment. If you want to live in an inexpensive, rent-controlled building, which is old, there are some things that you have to tolerate. And I'm telling you, 2 nights lodging, she's responsible for. But thousands for your headache, she is not. Judgment for the placement. Listen to me.
I trusted her, Your Honor, that it was okay to be in that. I stayed there too.
I want you to be smarter. I don't want you to trust anybody. I want you to trust your own instincts, madam. $185. 2 nights at the Best Western.
Interest and the year that she didn't pay me.
What about
it?
it? Deal with it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $185. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
We have a police report of an occasion when she attacked another tenant, overturned her furniture, and bit and scratched the other tenant.
I never bit anybody. I never scratched anybody.
There have been times when after midnight she's called my home screaming obscenities.
I did have problems with her with noise on one particular occasion, and she was outside.
I just hope that I never have to have another interaction with Melissa Beck again.
6-year-old graduate student Walt Whitley is suing his ex-girlfriend, 24-year-old student Sarah Clove, for a balance transfer to his credit card. Sarah is countersuing for the return of a PlayStation 2.
Order. All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 57 on the calendar in the matter of Whitley versus Clow. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat. You're welcome.
Mr. Whitley, according to what I've read, you and the defendant were boyfriend and girlfriend, and there came a time when you suggested to her that she consolidate all of her credit cards into one loan.
Correct.
You did a consolidation loan for her.
Correct. It was from her Wells Fargo loan to my credit card.
And it was your understanding that she was going to repay that loan.
That's correct.
Why did you make that consolidation loan?
Well, the reason why we did that, we often talked about getting engaged and then soon to become married. And so she has an expensive car, and then she also had a high-interest loan with Wells Fargo.
What was the interest in her account with Wells Fargo?
It was about 24%. And I was offered a balance transfer at 4.9%. So we talked about the best way for her to reduce her debt, because I'm a student right now. I have plenty of my own debt, so we were trying to take care of hers. And so we verbally agreed that I was going to help her out, and she'd make me payments for $250 a month until it was paid off.
What was the amount that you transferred onto your credit card?
There were two loans. One was for $274, and the other one was for $1,773. There were 2 separate Wells Fargo accounts.
Did you have 2 separate Wells Fargo accounts?
That is correct.
Okay.
In addition to that, she really didn't have enough money, or she had money, but she didn't have extra money. And so what I did is I put her as a signer on the account for emergency expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And the emergency expenses that I have shown here is for coffee.
Well, that was stupid of you, sir. Don't get me involved with that.
Okay.
Now, did she make any payments?
Yes, she did, Your Honor. I have 2 copies of 2 checks that
Let
she
me
wrote
see
to
them,
me.
please.
And I also have the deposit, my statements from my accounts.
So she made 2 payments, $275.
Correct.
I made 3 payments, Your Honor, and they were not for the credit card. They were to help him out.
Your Honor, you can see one of those.
Just a second. You made 3 payments.
That is correct.
Okay. One for $275, one for $250.
And check number 1106 in the amount of $330, which posted my account on September 3rd of 2001.
$330. And you gave that money to him for what reason, Miss Clow?
I flew to Hawaii for his birthday. Those payments were a reimbursement for me going. Since it was his birthday, I was going to pay for my plane ticket out there and for the hotel. We also stayed in Kauai.
Which I paid for.
which I paid him back for.
Just a minute. No. No. I don't buy that story. But I'll listen to the rest of your tale. Go ahead. I'll listen to the rest.
Okay, first of all, there was no verbal agreement made. He did this of his own free will. I was not in financial need. I was never late or behind on those payments. My car payment being expensive is irrelevant. Living at home, I did not have many expenses, as he is saying. I had the one expense of Wells Fargo and my car payment. And living at home, I had no renting.
What did you give him your account numbers for?
Because he wanted them.
What do you mean because he wanted them?
Well, first of all, we were dating.
My mouth is still moving. I don't understand because he wanted them. You say a lot of things in a relationship. You say you look great, your hair never looked better, where do you want to go for dinner? But not give me your credit card account number, babe.
Can I explain?
Yeah. Explain it to me so that I understand it.
Okay. The reason that I gave him the credit card is because he suggested to me that he would pay that balance. There was no agreement that I would pay him back.
Oh, so now, just a minute, you're changing the story. So you're saying now your defense is, so what I understand it, Miss Clow, is that he paid off your credit cards as a gift to you.
That's how I perceived it, Your Honor.
Just a second. That's what your defense is now. It wasn't before, but now that is your defense, that it was a gift to you.
Yes, and I...
Good! No, wrong. Wrong. I don't buy that for a minute.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Walt Whitley says ex-girlfriend Sarah Clow transferred a balance to his credit card and now refuses to pay.
Now, you have a counterclaim, let's get to it, for a return of your PlayStation and games.
That is correct.
Why don't you tell me what the counterclaim is about?
I purchased the PlayStation on December 5th of 2001 for myself and him to share. He refused to return it after we broke up. Since I never lived at his residence, and that's where the thing was, I could not go in and get it.
Now I'll hear you. PlayStation and games.
Well, I was in Hawaii for my rotations, and I was going back to Reno for Christmas. Sarah met me in Reno, and so she spent Christmas with me. She gave me the PlayStation for Christmas as a Christmas gift. I have a card here dated 12/4/01 saying, I hope you will get something in Reno that you really like. And so you can ask her what she got me for Christmas then.
Well, she got you something in front of your house. She got something, and the PlayStation was put in your house in December, is that right?
That's in Reno, and I took it back up to Portland, where I live.
Okay. And when did you finally break up?
The third week in January, Your Honor.
Okay, and between December 5th, when you bought this PlayStation, that's when you said you bought it, right?
I have the receipt to prove it right here.
I don't doubt that you bought it.
Okay.
Between December 5th and mid-January, the PlayStation remained with the plaintiff, is that right?
But I was staying the night at his house, so it was in my possession, but I did not live there.
Okay. Mr. Whitley, I want to tell you something. I think you should get down on your knees and look up and thank God that you got out when you did. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your counterclaim is dismissed, Miss Clow. I find that the PlayStation was a gift and judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,633. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Walter Whitley appears to be kind and generous in the things that he says and does, but if things don't go his way, as in my relationship with him, he'll turn around and stab you in the back.
Don't ever share credit cards or help someone out unless you sign the dotted line and you get married.
Deputy Coordinator Corey Wacker is suing his ex-fiancée bus driver Sandra Jo Matza for phone calls to a psychic hotline. Sandra Jo is countersuing for the cost of a wedding dress and the return of her engagement ring.
Order. All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 23 on the calendar in the matter of Wacker versus Matza. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Mr. Wacker, you and the defendant, according to what I've read, were engaged to be married and were living together since 1999. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it is your claim that when she moved out, you got a phone bill of $1,500 for the psychic hotline. And you claim that the calls were her calls.
That's right.
But you acknowledge making some of those calls yourself.
Not the 900 calls.
You made no 900 calls
None.
yourself. Okay. Ms. Matza says she admits making half of the calls. She said you did make some of those calls. Her defense is that while you were together, she put her money in an account that was used for paying household bills, and there was more than enough money there to cover that phone bill. In addition, she has a counterclaim because she says you took back the engagement ring, you stole it out of her jewelry box, and she wants you to pay for the wedding dress because she had no reason to break off the engagement. That's your counterclaim, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you started to live together in 1999, and you broke up when?
January 17th of 01.
Now, how did you handle the finances between 1999 and January of 01? Did you have a joint account, or did you have one account to pay bills, and was it your account?
Well, I put together a joint account, okay?
So you had a joint account?
Right. I had canceled out the joint account during when we had a problem before that January 17th date. I canceled all that account out, so that account was gone. Everything was in my name.
In the year 2000, did you have a joint account?
Yes.
And did you both put money into that account?
I did, yes.
You mean the defendant didn't put any money into that
Very
account?
little.
Very little is not an answer. She put money in that account.
Yes.
So if she put in any money into that joint account is both of yours. Because no court, not this court, is going to go back for a year and figure, well, I put in $500, she put in $25. I put in $2,000, she put in $500. It's not going to happen. As long as she put in some money, that money was all of yours. Now, tell me the month you closed out that account.
It was closed out in January.
January of 01?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. And how much money was in the account at that time?
About $200.
You have any paperwork to prove that?
None.
Now, how did you handle the finances with regard to rent and...
I paid all the bills. I signed all the checks. I signed all the mortgage payments. I signed everything. Everything was in my name because she couldn't have an account. She owed everybody so much money for everything that never once nothing could be put in her name.
Okay. Now, during the time that you were together, had the defendant ever made calls to the psychic hotline before?
Never. Never. She'd like to go to psychics, though.
But this was the first time she had ever used the psychic hotline.
Correct. Matter of fact, the January 17th, was the date I told her that it was time for her to go and move out, and that's the exact date that she started making these phone calls.
Can I see the bill, please?
Absolutely.
So what were you trying to find out from this psychic?
Your Honor, it wasn't only me. It was him, too, okay? And he was not only calling these psychics
Judge, that's untrue.
Shh, don't speak. You see how quiet she was?
Because they were calling his house approximately 4:30 every night asking for him. He not only started this with calling these psychics, he went on the online at nighttime calling them, too. And I am the witness for that because I was sitting right alongside of him watching this.
What kind of work do you do, Mr. Wacker?
I'm a safety manager for a second largest school bus company in the United States.
You work Monday through Friday?
Yes.
What time?
Usually from 8 in the morning to 5 at night.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a school bus driver for the first largest school bus company, Laidlaw. And I work...
Just your hours of work.
6:30 to 5.
You drive kids to school and then you go home?
Yes, and I do trips in between.
Just a second. You drive kids to work and then you go home. Okay. Well, some of these calls are in the evening.
From that January 17th date on, I didn't spend very much time at home. As a matter of fact, I made sure I wasn't at home.
Okay.
And because I didn't want to be anywhere around her. As far as me making any phone calls to the psychic hotlines, there's a 1-800 number that you can call to get a voice stamp. Every one of those phone calls had her voice on it as a voice stamp.
All right.
Which means she made the phone call. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Now, I got the psychic calls. Psychic calls were $1,400.
Right.
Right? Okay. Half of that is $750 because he was still living together. Now, I want to move on to you. He took back the engagement ring?
Yes. He stole it out of my jewelry box while I was in the process of moving.
That's okay. He's entitled to it back. He should have asked for it nicely, but he's entitled to it back. Engagement is over. Ring is given in contemplation of marriage. It goes back to the person who gave it. That's him. Let's get to the wedding dress. That's the wedding dress?
Yes, ma'am.
So why should he pay for it?
I can't wear it. I can't even sell it. I've put things in the courier post. No calls. I cannot sell it.
I don't think it'll fit me. So.
Cute.
Thank you.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Corey Wacker says ex-fiancée Sandra Jo Matza owes for unauthorized phone calls to a psychic hotline. Sandra Jo says Corey made those calls with her.
What other arrangements were made for the wedding?
None. There was no hall booked. There was no caterers. There was no music. There was nothing
a date
booked.
set?
Yeah, it was supposed to be July 7th.
Okay. And when did you buy the wedding dress?
I bought it in September, the year before, 2000.
Why?
Because he told me it was time, everything was serious.
Time for what?
For us to be engaged. So he told me, go out and buy your wedding dress, and that's what I did.
So, put it away, maybe you'll use it again. He's not paying for that. But you also understand, Mr. Wacker, that I have to make a judgment with regard to these bills. You and the defendant were living... What? I'm speaking. You and the defendant were living together as a couple.
Correct.
Bills being paid as a couple. If, let us say, this relationship did not terminate in January or February and she made these psychic calls, what you would have done is had a fit.
I had a fit anyway when I saw the bill.
Well, but by that time you had a fit and you didn't have any of the perks that go along with the relationship. But if you were together, it's like, you know, one mate going out and buying 6 pairs of shoes. What are you, crazy? 6 pairs of shoes? You only have 2 feet. What can you use 6 pairs of shoes for? You have a big fight. And then it's finished, and you move on. You don't say, you're going to pay for every one of those shoes, go out and get a job. You don't. Whatever.
But may I interject?
Yeah, you may, but you get where I'm going, sir.
Yeah.
You were a couple.
But at that point, from the 17th on, or actually, the night before that, the 17th, okay?
Yeah.
It was the 16th, is when I told her to move. Technically then, we weren't a couple anymore.
Yes, you were.
And she made these calls, and she made these calls, and she shouldn't have, because she's trying to find out whether or not the relationship's going to continue to work or whatever. You know what I mean? Well, I guess who it was, Miss Cleo, or whoever she called, told her I guess it wasn't going to work, or didn't believe her, so she kept calling her. You know, I just don't feel I should have to pay for all of her phone calls when it was a proven fact that she made the phone calls with the voice stamps. Her voice is on every one of those phone calls.
You're not following me, sir. You're trying to say the relationship was over at the time when I told her it was over. You're living in the same house. You've been living in the same house for a couple of years. She needs time to put her things together, to find another place to live, to do all of those things. That's what happens
but
when
I'm
one
not
of these
asking her to pay anything else.
Hey, listen to me very carefully, sir. That's the drill. You're a couple. You come in here and you say, first I'm a couple, then I'm not a couple. You want your things back. You want the engagement ring back because the engagement was over. You're entitled to it back because it's over. Had you been married, you wouldn't get the engagement ring back. There are certain things that a relationship has as intrinsic to the relationship. In this case, since 1999, the bills were paid out of a joint account up until a couple of days before you decided to terminate it. So you lived as a couple. Half of the psychic bills come to $737. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $737. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
By the way, I wouldn't have needed a psychic to know this relationship was not going to work.
I can't believe she lied up there like she did about saying that I made these psychic phone calls.
He's a user, a loser. I'm glad she's got him, and I'm glad I'm out of it.
That's ridiculous.
I put closure to this. He can't. He needs to end it and get on with his life. I already did.
I guess she figures that these psychics are going to tell her what to do and all. I'm not going to deal with that, you know.
He's an idiot.
Kamar Jalil is suing his former roommates, Katie Calderon and Amante Nepomuceno, for rent and the cost of 2 cats.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, everyone.
Case 2170, Jalil versus Calderon Nepomuceno.
Thank you. You're welcome. Oh, my goodness. Calderon.
Hello.
What's your first name?
Amante.
Amante?
Yeah.
Good. It's much easier than your last name for me to pronounce. Mr. Jalil, this roughly is what the case is about. You and Miss Calderon were in a relationship for a period of time. You decided to take an apartment. You were both on the lease. So far, correct?
Correct.
Your arrangement with Miss Calderon, which seems to be consistent in both your complaint and your answer, is that you had a much better paying job. She was going to provide the food and some other stuff for the house, and you were going to be covering the rent when you lived together, which you did.
Correct.
There came a time when Armante, who was a friend of yours, came to live with you. According to you, he was going to help out with the rent.
Correct.
He came, he lived with you, he helped out with the rent for maybe a period of time, and then he helped himself to your girlfriend.
Correct.
Now they're a couple. When you were no longer a couple with Miss Calderon, she stayed in the apartment for a period of time, but then they both left.
Correct.
And you're suing both of them for rent and for the return of 2 cats that they took when they left. You claim the cats are yours.
That's correct.
That's what the case is about. And some cat expenses in the event that I let them keep the cat. Cats. 2 cats. So when did you and Miss Calderon sign a lease together?
We signed the lease together at the end of July with the landlord present.
July of 2022?
July of 2021. Correct.
And it was for a year?
Correct.
And you had a job working for whom, sir?
I worked for a company called Steris.
What do they do?
They provide medical equipment to hospitals all over the world.
How long have you been working for them?
I'm going to have 8 years under my belt this year.
And when you moved into the apartment in July of 2021, what kind of work was Miss Calderon doing?
At the time, she was working at an animal hotel.
It was a pet daycare boarding facility.
Okay. Were you an hourly employee?
I was an hourly employee.
And I am correct that when you moved in July, your arrangement was that you were going to pay the rent.
That was
the arrangement.
Correct.
When did Armante come to live with you?
About August to...
That's
right.
Correct.
Shh.
He...
Just...
Amante was going to be our 3rd roommate.
You mean 1, 2, 3?
Correct.
Well, you're not roommates, really. You and the defendant, Miss Calderon, were not roommates. You shared a room.
We shared a room and...
And Armante was going to live where?
In another room.
And what was your arrangement with Armante with regard to paying rent?
We would split the rent 3 ways.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And how much was your share of the rent?
I would say approximately $927.
How long did you live there?
I was there when they signed the lease. I watched it all happen when they signed the lease. I came in, they signed everything.
Well, you didn't sign the lease.
I did not.
But you were there from the beginning?
Yes. And
it was your agreement with the plaintiff that you would pay 1/3 of the rent?
Yes.
Great.
We asked the landlord
to. So, hey, try not to hold each other's hands. Let's do the coochie someplace else. So you agreed with the plaintiff that despite the fact that you were not on the lease, you were going to assume the responsibility of 1/3 of the rent, $927.
Yes.
So you moved in July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. You left in April?
Yeah.
So you were there for 9 months?
Yes.
Did you pay rent for the 9 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
He paid rent for about the 7.5 months.
Okay. And then you left?
Yes.
Why did you leave?
I decided to leave because he decided to go to another place he was offered. So
what do you mean he decided to go to another place?
He
that was...
got a place from his grandparents in another city. So I couldn't hold down the rent with her, so I decided to leave to save money and go back to my parents' house.
Now, Mr. Jalil, you see, you don't make up a story like that, like he just told me. A lot of that has the ring of truth to it. Where are you living now?
My grandparents' house in an in-law unit.
So when did you tell them that you were going to a different place?
In March.
When did you leave?
I left in July.
Did you let him know that you were staying until the end of the lease?
I
what?
I discussed with them that I would be leaving, but I would stick around to help them find either a different location or even suggesting that we all went back to our respected families just to, call it.
Mr. Jalil, this isn't working for you. I have to tell you something, sir. This case is not working for you at all. And it's only because Mr. Amante is very direct with me that you're suing them for $10,000. Where does that come from in your mind? Your agreement with her was you were going to pay the rent. You were never out of pocket. Your agreement was you were going to pay the rent. He paid his rent when he was there. He paid his 1/3. You then told them you were leaving. That's a whole different story than what you wrote in your complaint, Mr. Giulio. Do you understand?
Correct.
It's a whole different story. So, at best, Armante would owe you for 3 months' rent if they just left. But you told them that you were leaving. Now, when did you find out that they were a couple?
I found out at the end of April.
Were you all living together?
Yes.
So you just had 2 months left to the lease. So he was paying you, he paid you in March, you had May, June, you signed the lease in July, so it was over at the end of June, June 30th.
It would have been over at the end of July, Your Honor.
Well, she doesn't owe you any money for rent. At most, he owes you 2 months' rent. Tell me why you left.
My job doesn't pay that well, so I decided to go back to my parents' house.
When you took this apartment, this expensive apartment that was almost $3,000 a month rent, had you had a discussion with Armante about moving in with you before?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Jalil, I'm reading your complaint because something wasn't registering right with me. You say you moved into the apartment together in August of 2021. Then you go through a whole bunch of stuff about a cat and then another adopted cat. You said in October we adopted a second cat. Around this same time, a third roommate moved in to shoulder some of the rent. Well, that's not true. He moved in right at the beginning.
And that was...
That was what?
That was...
a mistake.
That was a mistake.
Okay. But Armante acknowledges that he agreed right at the beginning. He volunteered the fact that he was there at the lease signing because it was agreed at the lease signing that he was going to pay a third of the rent. So, sir, you owe him rent as long as you show me that you've paid the rent. You moved out in July?
Yes.
And you paid your rent through July, or were you evicted?
No, I paid my rent in July.
Through July?
Yes.
Okay. 1854. Armante, you owe him $1,854. That's for 2 months' rent. Got it? Okay. I'm not subtracting anything because you stole his girlfriend.
That's fair.
What were you requesting when you filed your small claims case?
Either the return of both cats or $5,000.
That's not happening for you, Mr. Jalil.
Kamar Jalil claims his former roommates, Katie Calderon and Amante Nepomuceno, are wrongfully keeping his cats and owe him rent money.
Now let's deal with the issue with the cats. She doesn't owe you any rent. That was not your agreement with her. You moved out in July. August, September, October, November, December. 5 months ago, she's had both cats, right?
Correct.
She says they're her cats. When did you first file a small claims case?
September of 2022.
What were you requesting when you filed your small claims case? Be careful.
I was requesting either the return of both cats or $5,000, which was the accumulated expense of not just the cats, but also the expenses of her dogs as well. So any animal expenses for the time.
That's not happening for you, Mr. Jalil. When the cats were either registered or went to the vet, whose name is on the sheet as owner?
I believe it was Miss Calderon.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And she owns the cats, and she's had them for the last 5 months. I suggest that you go and adopt 2 more if you want some more cats. Do you understand?
Yes.
You were living together as a couple. However, your friend Armante has to pay you for the couple of months' rent that he didn't because he says, not you, he volunteered that was your agreement from the very beginning. So he owes you $1,854. We're finished. Thank you very much.
This court is adjourned.
I think he's just kind of butthurt that I moved on.
At least now I can put everything behind me and say that I did try.
I didn't think it would escalate this far.
All you can do in a situation like this is just you learn from it and you move on.
The heart wants what the heart wants.
This is what it is. It's life.
I find fascinating, Sarah, that people will write and or be assisted in writing a complaint and an answer, but they read it over. This man is an intelligent man. He has a serious job for 8 years. First of all, he was suing for $10,000. Come up with that money. $5,000 for the cat's expenses, ridiculous. But his complaint had really nothing to, even the timeline.
As your clerk, I know that is a pet peeve of yours when
I don't understand
they
it.
don't
You know,
match up.
if you're going to tell a lie,
at least tell a consistent lie.
Right.
I think the right thing happened. I think the defendant friend admitted himself that he owed the rent, and that was great, even though he probably should have just kept his mouth shut.
And not said, I was there when the lease was signed. This was always our agreement.
Yeah.
I was going to be the
but
third
he was
roommate.
honest, which we always appreciate. And so I think the right thing.
So
I think he needs to, like you say, put a period, Move on.
Anyway, all happy, and they look happy. They couldn't keep their hands.
Parties, please step forward.
Diamond Thomas and Rumby Williams are suing Rumby's former friend, Shamia Gilmore, for a deposit and the costs of a brunch.
Diamond, this is your boyfriend.
Yes.
And you were planning a baby shower?
It was actually a sipping seed for her.
What is that?
So it's like family and friends weren't allowed to really come to the hospital, so we decided to have a little event after the baby turned 6 weeks.
Okay, so that was October 22nd.
Yes.
You hired Miss Gilmore as the caterer of that little event. She quoted you a price of $500 to cater the event, and you gave her a $250 deposit.
Correct.
Then some stuff bothered you a little bit because you, according to what I read, you found some either text messages or whatever between the defendant and boyfriend, which you felt were a little too cozy by her.
Yes.
And you gave her a buzz and you sort of had it out with her. I don't want you to do this anymore, whatever. Anyway, you called her back and said, yes, I want you to do it. She ended up not doing this sip and see. And she finally called you and said, I'm not doing it. I don't like the attitude, I'm not doing it. And you said, fine, give me my $250 back. She said no. So you're suing her for not only your deposit back, $250, you did hire other people to cater the event.
No, we did it ourselves.
And you want her to pay $1,025 because you said that that's what it cost you over and above $250 plus the rest.
Yes.
Well, that you can't have. An offer and acceptance and a meeting of the minds. That was the contract. That doesn't have to be in writing.
We have a verbal agreement.
Diamond Thomas and Rumby Williams claim Rumby's former friend, Shamia Gilmore, owed for a deposit and the costs of a brunch.
Okay, you're going to tell me you chose not to do this shower? You chose not to do it.
Well, it's not that I didn't choose not to do it. It's she went to Twitter and threatened to beat butt, and I'm not doing business. If you want to fight me, it doesn't make sense. To be
Okay, well, I don't blame you. If she went to Twitter and said something nasty about you, then I wouldn't do her baby shower, sip and see, whatever they call it. I wouldn't do it either. Then you have to give her back her $250.
And I bought items for the brunch already. I offered the mimosa bar back and I offered $125 back. She wants the whole thing. If I already spent money out my pocket, there's no way you think I'm finna give you a whole $250. That doesn't make sense.
Well, just a second. Okay, let me see what she wrote about you on Twitter.
And also, Judge.
So what you're saying is you actually made a purchase.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have proof of that purchase that you made?
I have the mimosa bar. I don't have it with me, but I didn't print anything off.
I don't even know what that is.
Bar.
What is a mimosa bar?
So it's where you put the mimosa glasses on it's a grass wall, but it has where you hang the cups up on the wall with the mimosa glass, like the champagne flutes that you put on the wall. And then it has.
Have you used that before?
No, I bought one before, but I still have it brand new.
Just a second. Have you used it before? You're a caterer.
Yes, ma'am.
How many times?
Quite a few.
How many?
2 hands, maybe 7 or 8 times.
Okay. And you buy a new one each time you use it?
Yes, ma'am. I let them keep it.
Just a second. You let them keep it. Well, now you can keep this one and use it next time.
Okay.
And I would like to say something about the $950 that she owes us. We gave her a deposit of $250, and she is claiming that we had made anything threatening towards her.
No, just a second.
And she canceled on us. And so I feel that we didn't have enough ample time to be able to find another caterer to do our event.
Well, that's too bad.
Can I ask why?
Absolutely, because you're entitled to your money back, but your contract was for her to do a party, which she ended up not doing.
Can we see the contract? Because I don't.
No, you haven't. We
don't have the contract.
Yeah,
and yes, you do. You had an agreement. She was going to do an event for you on October 22nd. You agreed for her to do the event for you on October 22nd. And you gave her a $250 deposit. That's a contract. It's an oral contract. You had an offer. You had an acceptance. That's a contract. An offer and acceptance and a meeting of the minds. She was going to do the event for $500. You paid her $250. That was the contract. That doesn't have to be in writing.
We have a verbal agreement via
Well, that's what
Instagram.
That's what I just said.
So it is in writing.
Who cares?
Well, it was the point that How are we supposed to be compensated for everything that we had to do after she canceled us?
Well, you have to grow up. You have a baby.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Is this your only baby?
Yes.
Great, you have a baby. You have to grow up. I grew up so much, the old me would have beat out one of you. What is that?
I'm not sure.
Would you show this to the plaintiff? I'm just curious. She's going to give you back your $250 anyway. She chose not to do the event.
What?
I don't know what that is. I'm showing it to you. She gave me to show me something that you wrote.
You want me to read it?
No, I'm
or
just
you want me to
asking.
tell you what it is?
No, I'm just asking you if you were the author of that.
Yes.
And did you write it about?
It was just a general statement. It wasn't about anybody in particular. That's why I didn't
give that back.
Direct it. The name.
Very, very easy. Your baby nice? You happy with your baby?
Yes.
Very good. Do you have nothing to do with her anymore?
No.
Good. You have a mimosa wall? Use it for another event. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $250. We're done here. Thank you very much.
This court is adjourned.
I don't agree with the judge's decision.
I'm satisfied with the $250 and knowing that Shamia was wrong to keep our deposit after she canceled on us.
It's just a lot of mess. I won't do business with them ever again.
It is what it is. If she felt some type of way, that's on her.
I'm going to keep on what I'm doing.
We just won't ever do business with her again because she is very unprofessional, just like the tweet said.
Do you know it's an exciting day when at my age you learn something new?
We learn a lot of new things here.
Learn a lot of new things here. So I've just about mastered the engagement party, the wedding, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, quinceañeras, christenings, baptisms, baby showers, if I haven't mentioned that, anniversary parties. But this is the first time I ever heard that expression, a sip and see.
Yeah, I think it's a new thing. I think COVID probably played a role in it, about people not wanting to have big parties or interact with large numbers of people, especially before giving birth with all the hospital requirements. So I like the idea. I've only been to one or two, but the idea is you wait for your child to be about 6 weeks old, so they've been vaccinated, and
they're not vaccinated when you're 6.
Well, the first round of baby shots, and then they're able to see family and have a baby shower where the baby is included. So
I'll add it to my list of
Valenzuela versus Jenkins. All parties, please step forward.
Javon Valenzuela claims his former friend, Darian Jenkins, owes for unpaid loans and bail money from a false arrest.
Mr. Valenzuela, it is your claim that the defendant, who is a friend of yours, owes you for some small loans that you made to him.
Yes.
And then it is your claim that he had you falsely arrested.
Yes.
And you want damages for that. You've known him for a while, according to your complaint. You knew him, you were friendly with him, and then he moved out of state and then moved back. Where did you move to, sir?
To Colorado.
And you moved to Colorado from where?
From Texas.
And in Texas is where you knew the plaintiff?
Yes.
In what year did you move to Colorado?
2019.
And in what year did you move back to Texas?
This year, 2022.
And why did you move back?
Why did I move back?
You moved to Colorado for what?
My family was up there, yeah. And then my family went back to Texas.
Oh, so you moved with your family?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 29.
Did you live with your family in Colorado?
No, we didn't all live together, no.
The reason you say you came back to Texas was because your family came back?
Yeah.
Did you have a job?
Yes, I did.
Where?
I worked from home.
What kind of work?
For a newspaper.
In Colorado?
Yes.
What did you do in Texas?
Whenever I moved back, I was still working from home, but they let me go. I got laid off.
When did you get laid off?
I would say June.
June of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
And what month did you move back to Texas?
Oh, I had already moved back in May.
When you moved back in May, where did you go to live?
I was living in hotels.
But there came a point when you had no money.
It got to a point.
When did it get to a point when you had no money?
Maybe July.
And when did you contact Mr. Valenzuela?
I'd say July.
You didn't contact him in May when you came back?
I just want to say
that's a lie.
When did you contact him?
I mean, we talked while I lived in Colorado. You know, we always text each other, so.
Well, when you contacted him in July, what did you say to him?
I couldn't say exactly what I said, but.
Give me the gist of it.
Let me borrow some money, I guess.
Okay. And you needed it for living?
Right.
And what did he say to you?
He did sometimes if I asked him.
Okay. And how much did he give you?
Here and there, maybe 100, maybe 2 every.
No, altogether.
Altogether? Oh, I couldn't say how much altogether.
You couldn't say?
I couldn't say, maybe a few hundred.
Did he give you money for housing?
A couple times he did.
How much?
100 here, 100
Do you have a
there.
record of how much you gave him, sir?
I do.
Okay, because he's already said, and would you read that back to me, Whitney, please, about borrowing?
Said, let me borrow some money.
Right. Okay, let me borrow some money. So tell me how much money you let him borrow.
$1,200.
Show me. Okay, no, tell me what that is that you're giving him, all those papers that you expect me to read.
These are screenshots of every time I sent him money.
Oh, can I see it, please? Okay, get ready, Sarah Rose. Anybody who came could see that your lip was bloody. You say he fell, must have fallen outside. You don't know how that happened. But if you both are alleging that there was a fight, police would look at you and say, well, he's injured. They wouldn't have arrested you unless you had a warrant.
Valenzuela is suing his former friend, Darian Jenkins, for unpaid loans and damages from an assault.
So every time you gave him money...
He agreed to pay me back.
No, he's already told me that he'd called you and asked if he could borrow some money, and you said yes, and he said, I don't know how much it was. So if he doesn't know how much it was, you have screenshots of it, and Sarah is going to add them all up. Okay. Of all the money that you said that you borrowed from him, how much did you pay back?
120.
Good guess. Did he give you back $120?
No.
Did he give you back anything?
No.
Nothing ever?
No.
Okay. So while Sarah is adding that up, there came a point when you left the hotel. Is that right?
Yes.
And Mr. Valenzuela probably got tired of giving you money and it said that you could stay in a spare room in his house.
For the most part, yes.
And you moved in August of 2022, the end of August.
Yes.
And then in September, you had a fight. I don't care what the fight was about. It became physical?
He was physical, yes.
No, I wasn't, Your Honor. No,
Okay.
I wasn't.
Let's say you had an argument that spilled out into the street, because this becomes very important, because there's the other charge is false arrest. And it was a false arrest, you claim, based on his statement to the police that you assaulted him.
Right.
Right. He says, yes, you had an argument, but you weren't arrested on his allegation that you assaulted him, but you were arrested and held on an outstanding warrant. When the police responded, they found that there was an outstanding warrant. So now I want you to tell me, in September of 2022, did you have an outstanding warrant? That's either a yes or a no.
Well, it was on a payment plan.
I don't care what it was. Did you have an outstanding warrant?
Yes.
And the outstanding warrant was for a what?
Traffic tickets.
What kind of traffic ticket?
I think I was speeding, and I didn't have my license either.
So speeding, driving without a license. What else? You have insurance?
I think it was insurance.
Not think. Speeding, driving without a license, and no insurance.
And no tags.
And no tags. And for that, you got fined.
Yes.
And you didn't pay the fine.
I was paying it.
Well, there wasn't a warrant outstanding because you were cooperating and paying the fines.
The county that I'm in, the police officer said, it doesn't matter if you're on a payment plan. They'll arrest you if they want to.
Mr. Valenzuela, did you miss payments on your fine?
Yes.
Perfect. And so when the police responded to this kerfuffle that was out in the street, when they ran both your names, your name came up with an active warrant.
Yes.
Well, that's easy. So that you were arrested on the outstanding warrant.
I would have never been arrested, though, if he wouldn't have acted.
If he didn't call the police.
No, he didn't call the police.
Who did?
My neighbor did, because of the way he was acting.
So your neighbor called the police, but for the outstanding warrant, I don't know whether the police would have taken you into custody. You had an injured lip. They could see that your lip was bloody. You say he fell, must have fallen outside. You don't know how that happened. It's really not relevant to this case. But if I were the police and I showed up, you didn't have any visible injuries, right? No. You had a busted lip. If you both are alleging that there was a fight, police would look at you and say, well, he's injured. He's got a busted lip, got to sew it up. They wouldn't have arrested you unless you had a warrant, right?
Right.
Good. So that's not his fault that you had a warrant. It's not his fault.
I have that total. It's $2,727 $1,000,000.56, and that's including some direct payments to Motel 6s and other housing accommodations.
Includes that?
Yes, in addition to direct payments to the defendant.
Great. He says you didn't make any payments. 2727.
I mean, there's no way he expected me to pay. I never said I was going to pay him that back.
Well, you told me that you asked him if you could borrow some money. That's what you
couple
said.
times I asked to borrow money, but the entirety of that, all that, like, I didn't say I was going to pay that back. And he should know he was just being nice.
He was being
And
nice.
Sometimes he offered.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
You have a job now?
Yes.
Okay, great. 2727. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're finished. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
I think he was just mad overall, so he just picked something to get me back with.
Just like he said, he thought I was being nice. Why would you say you're gonna pay me back, but then not pay me back?
He was screaming, he was screaming, just screaming, cussing, like, embarrassing.
He was acting crazy, and because he was acting crazy, he woke up the whole neighborhood.
Well, he was drunk going crazy outside, running around the apartment complex, so she called the cops on him.
That's what made my neighbor call the cops, and that's why they came.
Oh, no, there's no friendship. It's gone. Yeah.
Don't have friends like that, but also don't bite the hand that feeds you. That thing comes good out of it, so.
Just something funny from the receipts that I was looking at. Some of them say, the price really big on Venmo or Cash App, and then it just says completed at the bottom. On some of them, though, you could see heart emojis that the defendant sent thanking him, basically acknowledging that he received the money payment, sent a red heart emoji, and some of them were at very odd hours of the night, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, some direct to Motel 6, some direct to other housing accommodations.
It's so interesting.
But I liked the receipts. I liked the
I never
paper trail.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
made it easy.
It's true. And because when people say I gave him cash and
even with an ATM slip, you never really know if the cash